Before you scroll past this video, I need you to ask yourself one question. Is there someone in your life right now that you know is not good for you, but you can't let them go? Maybe it's a relationship that drains you every single time. Maybe it's a friendship where you always leave feeling small. Maybe it's someone who has hurt you more than once and you keep going back. This video is not for everyone. This is only for the people who believe that God is working in their life. This is only for the people who have felt His hand moving, even when they couldn't see it. If you don't believe in God, you can scroll. This is not your message today. But if you do, if you believe that the God who created the universe knows your name, cares about your story, and has a purpose for your life, then stay. Because what I'm about to tell you might be the most important thing you hear this year. God removed them. Not life, not bad luck, not the universe. God. And I know that might be hard to hear. Because when we lose someone, our first instinct is never, "This must be God's plan." Our first instinct is pain. We replay every conversation. We wonder what we did wrong. We check our phones at 2 a.m., hoping they'll reach out. We create entire stories in our heads about what we could have said differently, what we should have done differently. And in the middle of that pain, here comes someone telling you God removed them. That sounds almost cruel, doesn't it? But I want to take the next few minutes and show you why. That removal was not cruelty. It was the most loving thing God could have done for you. Here is a truth that most of us don't want to accept. We are creatures of comfort. We don't choose what's good for us. We choose what's familiar. Think about it. You have known people in your life who were bad for you from day one, and you knew it. You felt it the first time they dismissed your feelings. You felt it the first time they chose themselves over you. You felt it the first time they made you question your worth. But you stayed. Why? Because it was comfortable. Because even toxic familiarity feels safer than beautiful uncertainty. And that is where most people get stuck. Not because they're weak, not because they're foolish, but because the human heart was designed to love. And when we love someone, even someone who hurts us, letting go feels like dying. So we hold on. We hold on to people that God already knows need to leave. We hold on to seasons that God already knows are over. We hold on to relationships that God already knows are costing us more than we will ever realize. And God watches. He watches His child, the one He knit together in their mother's womb, the one He knew before the foundation of the world. He watches that child slowly pouring themselves out into something that will never pour back. And at some point, He steps in. Not with a warning, not with a sermon, not with a sign in the sky. He just moves. I want to tell you what the removal means. Because too many people are interpreting God's protection as God's punishment. They lose a relationship and they think, I must have done something wrong. God must be angry with me. Maybe I'm just not meant to be loved. I need you to hear me right now. The removal is not a punishment. The removal is a promotion. Think about what it means when God removes something from your life. It means He sees your future. It means He sees what that person would have cost you 5 years from now, 10 years from now. He sees the version of you that never walked into your calling because you were too busy managing someone else's chaos. He sees the version of you that never found your true purpose because you were pouring all your energy into a relationship that was slowly emptying you. And He says, "Not my child, not on my watch." That is not punishment. That is a father fighting for his child. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a surgeon. You're on the operating table. You're asleep. You don't know what's happening. And the surgeon reaches in and removes something. When you wake up, your first feeling is not gratitude. Your first feeling is pain. Because surgery hurts, even when it saves your life. Even when what was removed was the very thing that was killing you. That is what God does. He performs surgery while you're sleeping, while you're not looking, while you're still praying for things to go back to normal. He is already at work, already removing, already preparing, already making room for what's coming next. And He says, "Not my child, not on my watch." That is not punishment. That is a father fighting for his child. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a surgeon. You're on the operating table. You're asleep. You don't know what's happening. And the surgeon reaches in and removes something. When you wake up, your first feeling is not gratitude. Your first feeling is pain. Because surgery hurts, even when it saves your life. Even when what was removed was the very thing that was killing you. That is what God does. He performs surgery while you're sleeping, while you're not looking, while you're still praying for things to go back to normal. He is already at work, already removing, already preparing, already making room for what's coming next. This is not a new concept. God has been doing this since the beginning of time. Abraham. God called Abraham to leave everything, his land, his family, his comfort, everything he had ever known. And Abraham went, not knowing where he was going, not knowing what was waiting for him, just trusting the voice that said, "Go." But here's what we forget. Abraham didn't go alone. He brought his nephew, Lot. And Lot was a problem. Not because Lot was evil, but because Lot was limited. Lot chose the well-watered plains. Lot chose Sodom. Lot chose comfort over calling. And God knew that as long as Lot was with Abraham, there would always be strife. There would always be division. There would always be something pulling Abraham away from the full promise. So God separated them. And the very next thing that happens in Scripture, God speaks to Abraham again. And this time He shows him the land. He expands the promise. He says, "Look north, south, east, west, all of it is yours." The removal of Lot was the activation of the blessing. Let me say that again. The removal of the wrong person from your life might be the very thing God is using to activate the blessing He promised you. David. David was anointed king as a teenager. He killed Goliath. He was celebrated in the streets. Songs were written about him. And then Saul turned on him. The very man David served, the very man David had proven himself to, turned against him, chased him into the wilderness, tried to kill him. And David had every right to fight back. He had every right to be bitter. But instead, David ran. And in that wilderness, in that season of being chased and rejected, David wrote the Psalms. The greatest worship literature ever written was born out of rejection. What if Saul had never turned on David? David might have spent his whole life being the king's musician, comfortable, safe, small. But the removal of Saul's approval pushed David into his destiny. Now I want to talk about the hardest part. Because everything I've said so far sounds clean and theological. But the reality is much messier. The reality is, you didn't just lose a person. You lost the future you had planned with them. You lost the inside jokes, the late-night conversations, the way they laughed, the way they made you feel seen at least sometimes. You lost the version of yourself that existed when they were around. And grief for a person is not just grief for them. It's grief for the part of yourself that lived in that relationship. And I'm not going to tell you that grief is easy. I'm not going to stand here and say, just trust God and you'll be fine in a week. Grief is real, grief is holy, and God is not asking you to skip it. He's asking you to feel it without losing faith in Him. Because there is a difference between grieving with hope and grieving with despair. Despair says, this loss means I am not loved. This loss means I am not worthy. This loss means I will always end up alone. A hope says, this loss is a chapter, not the whole book. This removal is a redirection, not a rejection. God is not done writing my story. I want to talk to the person who is 3 months out from a painful removal. And you've been doing all the right things. You've been praying, you've been going to church, you've been journaling, you've been trying. But it still hurts. And you're starting to wonder, if God removed them for a reason, why does it still feel like loss? I want to say something gently. Healing is not the absence of pain. Healing is the presence of peace, even in the middle of pain. When you can hurt and still trust God, that is not weakness. That is the most extraordinary faith any human being can demonstrate. Now, I want to talk about something that nobody talks about. What happens in the empty space? After someone is removed from your life, there is a space, a literal hole where that person used to be. And that space is uncomfortable. And uncomfortable spaces are dangerous. Because when we're uncomfortable, we do one of two things. We either run back to what we lost, or we fill the space with something new just to stop feeling the emptiness. And both of those things, if we're not careful, can delay everything God is trying to do. Going back is the obvious one. We've all done it. We knew something was over. We knew God had closed that door, and we went back anyway. And let me say this without judgment, because I've done it too. Going back to what God removed doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. But here's what I need you to understand. Every time you go back to what God closed, you are not just delaying your next chapter. You are reopening a wound that was starting to heal. You are reattaching yourself to something that God already had to surgically remove because you couldn't let it go on your own. And God, in His infinite patience, will let you. He's not going to chase you. He's not going to beg you. He's not going to send a lightning bolt every time you pick up your phone to text them. But He will wait. He'll wait while you go back. He'll wait while you get hurt again. He'll wait while you convince yourself that maybe this time will be different. And when you're finally ready, when you finally run out of your own strength, when you finally come back to Him, He'll be there exactly where He was, with the same plan, with the same purpose, with the same love. Now, the other danger is filling the space too fast. When something painful is removed, the enemy of your soul knows you are vulnerable. And he will send something that looks like healing, something that looks like your answer, something that looks like the replacement. But it's not from God. It's a counterfeit, designed to look like the real thing just long enough to pull you off course. Guard the empty space. Don't rush to fill it. Don't let the discomfort drive you into something you haven't prayed about. The empty space is not a problem. The empty space is a preparation. God is not going to send you who is next while you're still holding on to who was last. I want to spend a few minutes here on something that might be uncomfortable. Sometimes we don't know what we were actually protected from. We see the loss. We don't see what the loss saved us from. There are people alive today who are grateful for a breakup that destroyed them at the time. There are people today who thank God for a friendship that ended, that they thought was irreplaceable. Because years later, they found out who that person really was. They saw where that path was actually going. They saw what that relationship would have cost them if they had stayed. And they looked up at heaven and said, "Thank you." Right now, you may not be at the thank you yet. Right now, you might be at the why. And that's okay. The why is a valid place to be. But I want to plant a seed. I want you to consider that you are not just moving away from something. You are being moved towards something. And the God who removed them already has the replacement ready. Not just a replacement, an upgrade. A God-ordained connection that will add to your life instead of subtract. A relationship built on something real, something mutual, something that doesn't cost you your peace just to maintain. But you can't receive what's next with your hands still full of what was. I want to speak directly now to someone specific. You're watching this, and you know right now that there is someone in your life that God has been telling you to release. Not because they're a bad person. Maybe they're a wonderful person. Maybe they genuinely care about you. But they are not part of your next chapter. And God has been whispering it to you in the quiet moments, in the prayer times, in the moments when you just feel it. That gentle knowing that something needs to end, that something needs to shift, that you need to let go. And you've been ignoring it. Because letting go is terrifying. Because what if nothing comes next? What if the empty space never gets filled? What if God removes them and then silence? Can I tell you what that fear actually is? That fear is a lie. It is a direct attack on your faith. Because you don't actually believe that God would remove something without having something better prepared. Do you? Would the God who holds every star in place, who counts every hair on your head, who knew you before you were born, would he remove something from your life and then just leave you empty? No. 1,000 times no. He removes the thorn to make room for the garden. He closes the wrong door so your eyes are finally facing the right one. But you have to let go. You have to be the one to open your hands. Because God is a gentleman, he will not pry it from your grip. He will wait. He will be patient. But he will not force you to receive the blessing if you refuse to release the burden. I want you to do something right now. I want you to think about the name of the person or the thing that God has been asking you to release. Don't say it out loud, just hold it. Now I want you to say this with me. I release what God has removed. I will not chase what he has closed. I will not beg for what he has moved on from. I trust that the God who removed it already has what comes next. And I receive it, even if I can't see it yet. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are being prepared. And the God who made the universe is personally overseeing every single detail of what comes next for you. Before I close, I want to leave you with this. The empty seat at your table is not evidence that you are unloved. It is a reservation for someone God is still preparing. The silence in your life right now is not evidence that God has forgotten you. It is the quiet before something extraordinary begins. The pain you are carrying today is not your permanent address. It is a season, and seasons change. Spring always comes. Don't go back. Don't force the door open. Don't shrink yourself trying to fit back into a chapter God has already closed. Walk forward, even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when you can't see what's coming. Walk forward, because the God who removed them is the same God who is walking with you every step of the way into what comes next. You are loved, you are chosen, you are not forgotten. And your best chapter is still being written. If this message touched your heart today, I want to ask you one thing. Don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who is in the middle of a painful removal right now. Someone who is grieving a loss and questioning whether God is still there. Let them know that God has not left, that he is still working, that the removal is not the end, it is the beginning. And if you're new here, subscribe. Every week I bring you a word like this, a word to remind you that God sees you, that God knows you, and that God has not finished what he started in you. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.